You found us. I'm glad you did, but I'm so sorry you had to. The good news is we got you. Who are we? I'll tell you what we're not. We're not old. We're not boring, and we're not giving up. So come sit in our widow circle where trauma meets humor, and we remind you that you can not only survive, but thrive. This is Every Widow Thing.
Welcome. We're back, and we're here to share some of our stories. Today, it's going to be Lacey. She's about to dive into a really difficult, heavy day, the death of her husband. We're going to let Lacey take it over and share her story about Oliver.
So Oliver and I were about to celebrate our 10-year wedding anniversary. We were married September 23rd, 2001. And he had a tech conference in Las Vegas, which is probably not my favorite place to go. It's been a long time since I've been, but we thought, well, we'll tack on our trip there, stayed at a wonderful hotel. So we had it all planned. And we had our son Ryder, who was 6 at the time. We had some family members come to stay with him. But backing up, the day before we were going to leave to go to Vegas for the 10-year, he started not feeling well. His back was hurting and his stomach was hurting anyway. So I got him an appointment to see an internal medicine doctor. I have to say, Oliver's never had an illness, a cold maybe. He's never had a surgery. He's never done a drug in his life, barely drank. He was super into fitness. So I say that because we went into the doctor and he couldn't see us. So they sent us to the PA in the office and she misdiagnosed him with a stomach virus and a pulled muscle. So we went home.
And it's just by talking to him, like she just asked him some questions?
Yeah, she did blood work, but she did not do a urinalysis, which you should do when someone has a backache. I learned a lot of these things. So yes. And so we went home with muscle relaxers and some anti-nausea medicine. Went home and we had this thing called a sick bay at our house. You go upstairs if that way both can sleep well. Well, I got a text the next morning that said, it's the darkest night I ever saw.
Oh, my God.
And I did not know what that meant.
From Oliver. He's texting you.
Yeah, and it was very foreboding because I didn't know what it meant. I didn't think much about it at the time.
Right. Was he the type that would like overreact?
I wish he would have. No, he was a very quiet, introverted. He could be a baby, like meaning if he had a sniffle, but this was very different. I could tell he was not well. So I went and made an appointment. He said his back with the orthopedic surgeon. I have a sports injury. So I had that scheduled for the day at like 3:00 in the afternoon. And I took my son to school. So thank God for that. So he didn't see any of this all play out. But my husband came downstairs and he was moaning a lot. And I remember thinking, good Lord, someone who has nausea and a backache, why is he moaning so much? But I have a back injury. So I thought, that's got to be what this is. So I made that appointment. And it was probably about 9 or so in the morning. And I put him in his office chair, which had wheels on it. He was in so much pain, he couldn't walk anymore. And while he was in that chair, we were talking and I heard this clicking noise in his mouth. And that's the part where I'm not going to go into, but he ended up falling over. I called EMS, ran and unlocked the front door. They came flying in. I gave him the medicines he was taking. And no sooner than that, about 5 cops come in. So whenever that happens, I've now learned that that's protocol when it happens in your home. But they pushed me down in a chair, and the female told me to calm down. So my husband's being wheeled out in a coma in my home.
And you're by yourself.
And I'm by myself, and I'm shoved down in a chair, literally shoved in the chair. And so I'm trying to call my sister and tell her to come earlier instead of later because she was going to keep my son before we go to Vegas. And the phone dropped. I can't remember. The cop hit my arm or something. The phone dropped. So my sister just came anyway, thank God. And the EMS guy, I'll never forget his face. Every EMS that I see, I look in there to see if it's him. Such a comforting face. I remember, and he told them, back off. She didn't cause any of this. This is internal.
Wow.
And that's how I got released.
So they were treating you
like I'd done something
that's
to him.
crazy.
Yeah.
Because my husband died at home, sort of, and
I
I did not
thought
have
you were always
that.
allowed to go in the ambulance. I don't understand why you're
That's
not
a
just
big
automatically
no.
in the
That's a
ambulance.
big no.
with-
That's why
No
it was
idea.
so trauma. That's only one piece of the traumatizing part.
Right.
But one of my girlfriends came and picked me up and drove me there. And she was a nervous wreck. So it was really
So they
not
didn't have
good.
another person drive you.
No.
I cannot
You had to
believe
wait.
they didn't let you in the ambulance.
Because they were
The
still
ambulance.
interrogating me while he's gone.
Oh my
they had to take
God.
him immediately. I mean,
That
he's
is crazy.
So they had to go
me.
take care of him. And so meanwhile, my friend comes and gets me, and she was my only friend that was a stay-at-home mom. All my other friends worked. So I was like, who can drop and come and get me? So quickly I called her. We go to the Seton, and he's in the ER. And I kept saying, is he in a coma? Is he not in a coma? And they wouldn't give me any answers. It was very frustrating. And they sent me the priest, who was this 20-something guy. Oh my God, poor guy. And we were trying to get in touch with my father-in-law in Germany.
And no one's giving you really any information.
No.
He's in a room. You're
update.
not with him.
Yep.
You're just waiting to hear from
I don't
the
know
doctor.
we don't know why he's in a coma. He's had a stomach virus and a pulled muscle, right? So we kept trying to call Europe, but Seton didn't, at the time, you couldn't call
Out of the
outside the
country.
country. So I couldn't get a hold of him. So here his son is in a coma and I can't reach his father. So that was frustrating. But anyway, we ended up getting that figured out. But through the day, he subsequently never comes out of the coma.
When were you able to, like, how long were you kept from him before you could go in?
They finally, it was afternoon. It was probably 1 or 2. So this was at like
crazy.
9:30 or 1 or 2 in the afternoon. By the time I was able, they put him in a room in the ICU. And then it wasn't until 3 o'clock that we found it, because the heart surgeon had come and talked to me. And the infectious disease guy was the best one of all. He came to me and he said, I don't even know how someone this healthy. He said, I think that it's his health that made it so bad. Because when you have group A strep, which everybody has had probably in this room, by the way.
Strep throat.
Strep throat. But bacteria can get in through a cut, through, we think maybe dental work that he had done. We don't know. But it
you
happens
have
to people all the time.
But you did say if you have strep throat, you should not get.
Never get dental
Dental
work when
work
you
done.
have strep throat.
And
ever.
how long when was the dental work?
5 days prior. So we don't know for sure, because like there was a kid recently, I sent you guys an article. Same thing happened to him, but his was the type with the skin.
He had a cut.
Yeah, it was a cut or something.
Yeah.
But, we have a lot of orifices in our bodies, and you can have, cuts like I have one on my hand right
Yeah,
now.
I'm sure I have one.
That's how it can get in. I mean, it's everywhere. And this is much more common than people want to know, because it's scary to hear, right? That a healthy person who, and that's
Wasn't
what
he 36,
he's
37?
38.
38.
Yeah.
It is
young.
true. It people always want to know. Well, was he sick? Well, they're trying to figure out how to make them feel safe that it won't happen to them.
The infectious disease doctor made me realize, he said that the problem with someone like him, he said he's the healthiest person I've ever known that this has happened to. He said it's disturbing. And so that said, that it was right before midnight, and it wasn't until the afternoon, by the way, that we knew exactly what it was, right? So I'm still thinking he ingested something. So I went home and I cleaned out the refrigerator. I was panicked. And then I went back to the ER, and he'd coded several times, and no one called me. So I was furious.
What in the world?
I don't know, but no one called me, and I said, my number is on the board. Next time, I'm not leaving anymore. So now they were like, oh no, she's never going to go home. Well, they thought he was going to be there for a while. People do come out of this. It's more common than people think. But that night, just before midnight, he died.
So
Were you with him?
Yes. Well, they pushed me out of the room because they were going to try to revive him. And he never came out of the coma. So there was a goodbye from my end, but I did see his hand move and his eyes started cocking up and down when I was talking to him at one point. And the nurse was there and she said, I have not seen that. him do that. So,
And when you were sitting with him at that point, did you ever think that he was going to die? You just thought this is serious, and
it's
did
terrible
anybody
to say.
have
I
you?
knew it.
You did. You had an
did.
instinct.
I did. My
Mhm.
sister took me outside to get some fresh air. And even though the doctor said, I think you need to prepare for a long haul, because people do come out of it. They were preparing me for a long haul, but I knew. And I told my sister, she said, I remember you telling me. I said, no, it's over. And she said, well, why don't we pray? And I said, you can, because I do believe in God. I want to make that clear. But I was very angry,
Mhm.
very angry.
I think
This
that's
happened to
so
such
common.
a nice person, someone so young. And it was so.
What was it that made you think maybe this was the end, or that maybe he wasn't going to pull through?
I think I was told in my,
Mhm.
I think
just got
that's the
chills.
connection that I have,
Mhm.
because I think God, I think it's a God thing. I think he was preparing me for what was about to happen, and it didn't prepare me, but it was still, I was terrified. I was angry for a long time, and God, no one better mentioned God to me at the time, because they knew better,
Right.
because I was really angry.
Can I
But-
ask you a question about telling Ryder? Do you feel comfortable sharing that part of it?
I do, because I think people need to know that. I think people think, oh, it's been 11 and a half years. Aren't you over it yet? I'm sure y'all have heard that. Or you're doing well. You should be good. Well, imagine that, okay, so my son had gone to sleep, because this is after midnight. This is just before midnight that he
Right.
died. So my son had gone to sleep. My sister and brother-in-law had come in town, thankfully.
And he's 6 years old.
But what did he? Where did
He just thought his dad was sick, and he
Okay,
was at the
okay.
hospital, but he just thought he'll come home.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
we still didn't know. I mean,
Right.
we were still in the dark up until he died. So it was. They put him to bed, and my parents came and got me. My parents drove all night from Mississippi, and my parents are older too.
Mhm.
So they drove all night, came and got me, and I didn't sleep at all. And then the next morning, obviously, I'd been crying for the entire day. And so my son came out and he goes, Mom, you look weird. Your eyes look weird. And this is the part that's hard.
We should have had some Kleenex in here. What were we thinking?
I know.
You don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
I remember when we were driving to go tell my kids, and you're thinking their whole life is about to change. Right now, everything is the same. They have no idea. And I am about to have to be the person that breaks their world open.
Yeah.
And that is the hardest thing. I can't imagine having to tell a 6-year-old who hasn't had really any experience with death at all.
And he was trying to comfort me. That's the part
Right.
that broke my heart.
Yes.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
And he still
He still
he
does.
still
Yeah.
got you. He
He
still got
still
you.
does.
Yeah.
He's still just the total. I mean, that's why I tell people that I poured all my energy into him, and he's what got me through. So I was
Well,
grateful.
he's an incredible kid. Incredible.
He is. I'm grateful for that.
Just maybe for some of our listeners, maybe move on to what happened then in terms of there's so much that has to be handled. And I didn't know you then, but people must have stepped in and
I did. I was fortunate that we had been living here. We were both new here at the same time. So when we first started dating, it was kind of laughable. He knew all the people at Vignette, was the software company, because he'd been there a while. I was new. I hadn't been there but a few months when we got together. So we had a lot of friends that one of them did the 12 Days of Christmas, my little play group. And so every day they would leave a surprise at the front door, and Ryder would go and get the surprise. He was so excited. His dad had just died. And, I learned after reading a lot of books that kids at every age have a different grieving process. The kids that were older, sometimes in their way, they grieve harder. Mine could only go in for little periods of time, and then he'd video game, and then he would go out of it and then come back again. And sometimes he would cry about things that were not related to that. but I knew that's what it was.
100% related, yeah.
But the 12 days of Christmas was really fun. So every day he would wait. Which is the one, the dancing girls, that's the 12 days of Christmas?
Yeah.
What number is that?
Please don't make me sing it.
So
On the first day of Christmas.
is that what it was?
Ladies dancing.
Okay. So
They're like can girls, I think.
So a friend of that's in the play group, Amy, I won't say her last name, she has all the dancing girls from her kids' school
Oh my
at
goodness.
our front door dancing with a
That's
jam
darling.
box. It was hysterical. The whole neighborhood was staring like, what is going
Oh,
on
that's funny.
at our house?
That's
So,
amazing.
but it really helped him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Your heart is breaking for yourself, but your heart is breaking
Yeah.
for them because they're babies.
Yeah.
And, your brain goes to all the things that they won't have now that their dad is gone.
Gosh, that is true. It was weird. Everybody's like, it's so hard. I said, the hard part, honestly, two things. For what Oliver was missing,
Mm-hmm.
he missed so much. I mean, he's missed every grade. He's about to graduate high school and he's missed 12 grades. Fortunately, several years in, life started getting a lot better. But I could not go to dinner any nights. I had to be home when he'd get home from school because he would panic if I wasn't there.
I was going to ask you, talk about your PTSD from just having to deal with that day.
Yep.
But I was wondering if he also had PTSD.
I talked to the therapist that I got. Fortunately, my friend Mark gave me the name of a great therapist. And so that happened quickly. And she always say it was God, therapist, family, and friends that saved me because she was amazing. She said, if at his age, the grieving process is different. She said, if you're better, he'll be better. She was right. So the better I could cope and the better I took care of myself, the better I was able to take care of him. And every day I could just see him getting a little lighter. And we did end up switching schools because he did not like being the pathetic one. He wrote about it actually in his college essay. I found it in one of them because I thought he didn't really talk much about it because he doesn't like to talk about his dad's death. He likes to talk about being a thriver. He doesn't like being a victim. That bugs him.
Yeah.
So I saw that he talked about when he switched schools because they asked him why. He did one of those interviews for one of the colleges, and he said, "Well, my dad died." He said, "But I didn't want to be the kid that everybody pitied. So I went to a school that was going to be challenging. I like languages, and so we switched schools.
And was this in second grade? Or,
Yes.
Okay.
So we stayed at the other school for the year, and that was not good for either one of us because I don't like a lot of attention.
Yeah, you're
Either.
similar. You don't want to be looked at as a victim or pitied either.
No.
So, not that that's what they were doing, but people don't know how to handle
Yeah.
the grief, and so they look at you with sympathy. But it also can just be
You don't want it to define you. I mean, it ends up
Exactly.
being a big part of the story. And, when you meet people, that's always going to come into play, but you just don't want it to define you.
Exactly. And especially for him. And so it was kind of scary though. He didn't speak a lick. This is what he said in the essay. It was really true. I was like, oh God, I'm sending my kid to a Spanish immersion school. I don't speak Spanish. I've
Right.
had 3 years of German and I'm still not good. So we go to a Spanish immersion school. All the kids have been there since PP3. So that's 3, 4, 5. He's coming in after they've had 3 years.
Wow.
Fortunately, he saw a kid that he had gone to camp with, loved that kid so much because when he saw his face, I thought, I'm going to be okay. He's going to be
One
okay.
friend,
He's got
yeah.
one friend, Leighton. I'll say his name. He's so cute.
Leighton.
He was so cute. He still is. But he helped him. And the teacher who was from Barcelona said, I'm going to tell you, you wait. It's just going to start happening. And then flash forward a couple of months later, they had to give a presentation. He wore his dad's tie. He said, I want to look good. 7 years old. He puts on his
Big old
dad's
tie.
tie. And they had to wear uniforms there. And so he puts on the tie and he's giving his presentation in Spanish. I didn't know what he was saying. So I had to turn to some of the parents and I was like, is it good? Is it not good? They were like, it's fine.
I have to say kudos
That's
to you
adorable.
because that was a big decision. And it's
Huge.
one of the first big decisions that you had to make without Oliver. It could have gone either way. Like that's the fear,
Absolutely.
right? And not having your partner to bounce the idea off of, you can stay frozen. I mean, that took a lot of strength at a time in your life when you probably didn't feel like you had any strength.
What's funny is what you said earlier. You were talking about. I think you had a lot of friends switching schools, though. Nobody there, and this is what he loved about it. This is what he wrote about in the essay, and I was like, you were right. Nobody knew either one of us. No one knew what happened to us. They assumed I was divorced.
Yeah.
For the longest time, no one knew.
Right.
They knew I was a
But I
single
didn't
mom.
want that. I didn't want people to assume I was divorced.
But I didn't want to talk about it either.
I had widow's Tourette's, so I told everything.
Sometimes it's easier to just let people make their assumptions. And then if you get closer with people, then you reveal the truth. And
Yeah.
I reveal my truth to the gas station attendant.
It's
Everyone.
hard though, like especially.
I mean, you've got that shirt, not divorced.
Do you want to share some of what saved you? And you said it was God, therapy, family, friends, or was it friends, family?
I don't know.
I think it was Ryder.
It was Ryder. I can
Yes.
truly say he was I don't know. He's such a positive person. Someone said that about the interview. They closed out the interview. And I'm saying a lot about the college stuff because that's a big deal. This is a big life-changing thing that happens to you and your family. They're going to leave. I'm going to be an empty nester, but I'm excited for his future. What were we asking? So this is what happens when you start talking about it. Happens to me a lot.
Well, you said he's a positive person.
Thank you. Because talking about traumatic things, I can't remember a lot of stuff. It's because I don't want to.
Yeah.
But he is a positive person. He doesn't get down much. And if I'll say, God, they were so rude, he'll say, maybe they had a bad day, Mom. And so it makes me remember, I'm like, he has a lot of grace for people, which I admire in a person. So he's not perfect. He still sleeps too long and still messy. And, he can talk back to me sometimes and thinks he knows more. But for the most part, he's been the bright light in all of it. So I think that's a surviving technique. Exercising is a thing. Meeting all of you, everything got a lot better when I had someone who could relate to my story.
Right.
Because everybody would put me with the divorcees. And I'm not saying, I want to be clear, their world is not easy either.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Right.
And I needed someone that, like some divorcees don't get a break either. But at the time I was thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to have a break again. I'm sure that had to cross your minds. I was thinking,
Oh, yeah. I was kind of jealous. Like, you get every other weekend off?
Yeah.
And yet I didn't want my kid to go anywhere either.
Right.
I had a weird, because I know you and I've talked about, Kira, that we like the escapist thing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't escape because I wanted him to come with me, not because I'd love to say it's because I'm the best mommy in the world, but it was really out of fear. If something happens to
Well, of
him, I'm not going to be
course.
Okay.
Oh,
He's all
yeah.
I've got left.
Right.
So I dragged him
Absolutely.
everywhere. And he now knows where that comes from. And I love him being this age because we can talk about, like now, when he was young, he probably thought, what the heck is wrong with my mother? She's crazy. Now he still thinks I'm crazy, but at least he knows why I'm
Right.
crazy.
Well, you can have an adult conversation with
Yes.
him now.
And now he understands that when I was losing it, he said an ugly word one time in the back seat of the car. And I said, Ryder, where did you hear that? He goes, I got it from you, Mama. And I was like, oh my God.
Well, we've all been
sold
there.
Me down,
Yeah.
sold me down the river, but oh well.
Would you say, because I know that for people that are just starting this grief journey, you worry about what's going to happen to your kids.
Absolutely.
And I always say, as crazy as it sounds, they're going to be okay if you are grieving in a healthy way too. Would you say,
He's doing great.
Yeah.
I have to say, he's a positive, happy, he's driven. That's good. He's very introverted like his dad, but he's chatty. He says he's the chatty introvert. But I think he's doing well because
of you.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I
No,
think
that
there's
is.
some of it in spite of me. I think he's doing well because it's his own personality. And I think some of it's because I did stay close.
but you
didn't
also communicated with him along the way. And I think that's important. Don't hide your grief from the kids. They know it's happening. They feel it. It's
Yep.
giving them, that
Gives
makes
them
you feel
permission
safe.
to grieve too.
Yeah.
Right. I think definitely we would, I learned from Oliver's family really how to manage this better than even what I got in therapy. His mother died when he was 10 and his sister was 6.
Oh.
So the same age as Ryder. And they never discussed it. The kids didn't go to the funeral. So I was like, what
They
is
didn't
that?
go?
No. And both my parents are counselors. So, and and oddly enough, they didn't handle all of this very well because it's their daughter.
Right.
But I did learn that the best way is to show them that you can grieve and recover, that I'm not going to stay down. I'm having a down day. And I would say that even when he was only 6, I'd say I'm having a bad day or a bad moment, but I'll be okay. And I gave him permission to cry. And I think that's really important, that I know for me, if I can get it out, I feel a lot better.
Well, I'm glad you brought it here. I think it's going to help a lot of people. Lacey, thank you. I know this was a difficult day.
We love you, Lacey.
And we love you, and you did awesome.
You guys.